Helly, how are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, thank you, Helly. We're going to jump straight in because we've got lots to cover in quite a short amount of time today.
Yeah.
To anybody who doesn't know her, this is Helly, who is a mum of three and a fabulous coach who helps mums juggling it all and is the founder of the Village Coach. She firmly believes how we all deserve the village that we were promised, but in modern motherhood, it's increasingly hard to find. And most mums don't have the traditional setup or family and friends around them, and no clue where to start in building their own village. And often mums will tell themselves why they don't deserve that village in the first place, even though they desperately need it. So Helly will talk to us today about how to build your unconventional village as the key to bridging the gap between outdated traditional support networks and the increasing isolation of modern motherhood. So based on her own experience, Helly will share two truths that she's learned, including that rest is not selfish, it is essential, and every mum deserves a village, but no two villages look the same. And so this is why she's created the Village Coach, which is a safe, supportive space where mums can feel seen and heard and start to build their own unique village based on her build methodology and her 12-week program. So if you do have any thoughts or questions throughout, please do share in the comments below. We will also be giving you some space to reflect on your own village. And of course, the most important bit, Helly is going to be sharing some tips and tricks in how to help us build the village that we all need. Because we know it takes a village. So hopefully we can help you build yours today. So let's jump in. Thanks for joining us, Helly.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Lee, I would love to know your story because you have experienced your own journey of burnout and health issues that has led you to starting the Village Coach and where you are today in helping other mums. Can you share a little piece of your story with us all?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first became a mum, which was nearly 10 years ago now, which I can't believe, um, we I had this expectation of the village, right? We're sold that message, aren't we? There's outdated expectations of what that looks like, that kind of traditional village. We lived in London at the time, and we did have lots of friends in London, but no family at all. And for anyone who's lived in London, people can be quite spread out. So I think we just kind of didn't really think about it. We thought, yeah, we've got some friends here, and we'll be able to lean on people. And what we actually realised was we didn't have any kind of those traditional village structures available at all. And it wasn't like people, didn't care or didn't want to help. It was increasingly obvious that it was more about our expectation and particularly my feelings as a mum of how do I even ask for help? That was the biggest blocker. That's the thing I realised. So in those early years of motherhood, what I lent on and what I kind of really sort of took quite a lot of pride in, to be honest, was being the super mum. It was holding it all together. It was kind of like juggling it all and just getting on with it. And people saying to me, like, oh, wow, you're kind of, traveling around London with your baby in the buggy and you do so much and all of this. And I kind of fed off that. And what I didn't realize at the time was that was totally unsustainable. That was all a bit of a facade. I think I was a bit of a swan, keeping going above water and then underneath, who knows what was going on. So, yeah, over those kind of early years of motherhood, having my second child, and also having experiences of returning back into the workplace, there were various things that really knocked me back. And so slowly that like outward facade started to, deteriorate a little bit for sure. And I realized that actually feeling super supported and feeling that I could be totally authentic myself and be open about what I was going through, that was the bit that I was missing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. So many of us take on this almost like a martyr approach, don't we? We feel like we have to have it all and do it all because otherwise we're failing in some ways. But actually, it's a completely broken system where it's unsustainable for us to do that for a long period of time. So then, what did you do at that point? Did you break? What happened then?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's probably, I talk about it as a bit of an unraveling. It's a bit of a dramatic word, but it's sort of, it does fit really with my story. I'd say there were like certain moments over those early years. So after I had my second, 2 years apart, I had my first two. I had at that point not got back into kind of PAYE role. So previous to that, I'd worked in the charity sector for years. I wanted to go back on like part-time hours, and that didn't work out. I was kind of refused that. So that was a big knock to my confidence, I have to say. But that was the point where I thought, okay, I can go freelance. Great, brilliant. I can take things into my own hands and run my own schedule. So again, had aspirations of what it's like to be a freelancer, what it's like to be self-employed. Oh, you get this freedom, you're in charge of your schedule, you can pick up your kids from nursery, no guilt, all of that. And what I realised is that you're then taking on a whole other juggle when you do that. So when I had my second, I was kind of trying to do the kind of freelance life, but actually realised that that sort of extra pressure and extra juggle really started to affect my mental health. So I had a period of postnatal depression, which was obviously extremely tough. And, you know, even that in itself took a while for me to realise, for me to be able to communicate to those around me and to actually reach out and get that support. So I think that was a big kind of reflection of, okay, things are not sustainable. And then in the periods that followed, that was at the point where I started to think work-wise, career-wise, I need to be doing something different here. There's a shift that needs to happen. And for a long time, I'd thought about what that could look like. I kept sort of flip-flopping between lots of decisions. But what I knew is that I wanted to work with people directly, and I wanted to have an impact and share my story and hear theirs. I think working in fundraising, I loved working in the charity sector, but I was a core function. You know, I'm not going to claim that I was at the front line helping the people that we were serving. So I just wanted to remove that barrier and have an impact on people's lives again. So that's when the idea of coaching and having that impact started to come in. And then once I'd done my training and qualifications over kind of COVID and all of that period, that's when the village, that idea of you can start to build your own network of support, regardless of what that traditional stuff looks like or doesn't look like for you. That's when that concept started. So it grew into a positive eventually.
Fabulous. And I think sometimes that's where the best ideas come from your own pain, essentially, isn't it? And you went through that, and that's why you're now able to help so many other women sort of make those steps into creating something for themselves now. So I would love to know then, have you been able to create your own village that works for you?
Mm. I love this question actually, and I was thinking about this a little bit earlier because I've had slightly two different versions of the village, and I like to be open about this as well actually. So we did quite a big move out of London about 5 years ago, and we are now much nearer family. And so for the first 5 years of motherhood and for my first two kids, we were in London without that traditional like network, and then now that's changed a little bit. However, I think it's really important to make the point that some people's setup can look as if it's like the perfect village, right? Yet still, they feel unsupported, they feel overwhelmed, they feel like they're drowning. And this is a lot of the issues that clients come to me with, where they say, like, I feel like I should be coping. I feel like I should be grateful. I feel like, you know, I should kind of have it all together because I have my mum down the road, or I have a cleaner once a week, or whatever that village looks like. So yes, what's happening on the surface is it has a huge amount of it, but it's more about what's happening inside. And I think for me, the work that I've done in the last 5 years through being coached, becoming a coach, and working with clients, it's the beliefs, my self-beliefs that have changed and my mindset that has changed, which now enables me to know what I need and know what's very specific support that I need within my life, with my children, our family schedule, which will look different for you and all the other mums, and get really clear on that and be really honest about it. And that in itself is quite a hard exercise, because I had to start letting go of that supermum stuff. I had to start saying, like, I'm not going to be the perfect mum holding it all together and, you know, smashing it. That's not for me, because actually I don't want that. I want a little bit more kind of, you know, equilibrium in everything that I'm doing. I want a bit more calm, a bit more pace and a bit more peace. That's what's right for me. So for me, it's about that internal work, so that you really define what you need, what it looks like, and then you know how to ask for help. So that's the bit that I coach my clients on, really. It's the mindset shift. How can we confront our beliefs and change them? And then what do we do with them? We have to take action. That's what coaching is all about. It's future focused. It's what does that look like in the world? And that's the bit that I'm so passionate about when I work with my clients.
Oh, fabulous. Well, that's the bit that we're going to get onto right at the end, because I think that is, we won't spend too much longer on the stories, because I think those key principles about breaking down those assumptions, I think you're right. I think you can look at somebody else's setup. For example, mine, I'll share mine. I, from the outlook, have a very traditional setup. I moved back. My husband and I were childhood sweethearts, essentially. So we came back to the area that we grew up in. So we have both of our mums here. We did that just before we had our first child. So from the beginning, we had both mums here to help with childcare, what it looked like. But actually, I found it really difficult to ask for that help, especially, COVID hit, we couldn't get that help. But then even after that, I felt like I had to justify, because I wasn't working, I had to justify why I was asking for some time away from my eldest for me. It wasn't that I wanted to work and I was doing some things in that space, but actually I just needed some rest. I just needed a little bit of TLC and just a bit of a break. And I didn't feel like I could ask, particularly my mother-in-law, for that help and say, can you have him for half a day? Because I need, that's what I need. I couldn't articulate that. And that's what I found really hard. And then on the flip side of that, I look at, a lot of my friends in this situation. It would be great if anybody would like to share what their village looks like, because I think sort of breaking down those facades of what it can look like. One of my friends moved back from London. Her family is also very close. They are not necessarily the most helpful when it comes to any sort of childcare and support. And then I've got other friends who, all of them, apart from me, haven't got family in the area. So after COVID, we started doing this thing where we did this toddler sharing swap, where we would take it in turns to take one of the other toddlers, take one of the other children, and to give those set of parents some time off, because actually what they realised, they hadn't had a break for 18 months. They hadn't had any time away from their children for that time. And that was a bit of a shock to me, because I thought, well, actually, I'm very lucky in that sense. And it was actually the dad, interestingly, who created this setup. He came to us and said, we're going to do a rota and we're going to do this, this, and this. And there were 4 sets of families and we all shared that. And actually, I took a step back from that in the end, because I felt very guilty, because I was able to have some time without them. But I still took some, I did take their toddlers, even if I didn't get it in return, because that was absolutely fine. And again, Emma, our co-founder, she asked to put me on her as an emergency contact on her school application. And that, again, was it for me, realizing that she didn't have that key person locally who could be that person. And I felt very honored that she chose me to do that. And it's a big responsibility, but I was happy to do that. And it is about asking for those very specific things where really I hadn't really thought about that for her. What can I do to show up for her as her village? And I know we talk about that a lot. So it would be good then to hear some of those things that we can do to break down those rules, to start asking from your experience of coaching mums. What are your sort of top tips for building up your own village, as it were?
Yeah. So I would say that it's a really good little exercise to do, which is a good way of kind of digging into those beliefs, which are sometimes the things holding us back. So I would just briefly talk about that. And this is a really good method that you can use in all sorts of situations. First of all, it's called the ABC method, so really easy to remember. And second of all, this is to use when you are feeling overwhelmed, like you're drowning, like you are the only one finding this hard, which is how I felt for a long time in motherhood. I'm still on lots of days now, if I'm honest, nearly 10 years in, right? If you think, God, I've not figured out what everyone else seems to have figured out here. First of all, there is no magic solution. We are all in this together. But second of all, this ABC method is a tool that you can use. And I'm all about tools, because tools give you power and start to put you back in control of things. So first of all, the first section is assess, A for assess. It's basically about figuring out what is happening for you in that moment. So you can take a really sticky point in your day, if you like, and lots of mums that I speak to, we get really granular about this. We get really kind of geeky, and we're like, right, let's figure out what are the difficult points in your day, in your week. So for example, in like the everyday life of the mum juggle, for me, the mornings are my sticky points, right?
Yeah, me too.
I just can't. They overwhelm me. I find myself going from 0 to 100. I'm have the best intentions that we're going to have a lovely calm morning, and then it just kind of all explodes. And what happens is it's not just what's happening on the outside, it's what's going on the inside. So I start to say to myself, oh, you've messed that up now, haven't you? Like, oh, you've snapped at the kids, you know, you've kind of, you know, you've gone past that point where you wanted to go. So all of that negative self-talk can start. So have a think about whatever that looks like for you in your day, and just kind of sit with that. And it's a little bit uncomfortable because you have to be quite self-reflective and give yourself a little bit of honesty and be like, actually, that is not how I want to be showing up. But it's also about acceptance that you're a human being and that that's okay. So that's number one, assess. The next part of that assessment piece is, what do I want to be happening instead? So if I was like an observer on this situation, so if I was someone who was kind of watching me go around my mornings, not that I think I'd like to do that, what would I kind of say, like, what could change in this situation? You know, would it be having more calm? Would it be having a bit more time? Would it be being able to go with the flow a little bit more? You know, what would be your ideal scenario in that assessment piece? The next section is B for belief. And this is the stuff where you can get really deep, and I'd love more time to do it, but obviously I'll just briefly go over it today. Now, I talk a lot about belief blockers, and a lovely little game I can do with clients, and I've got a resource around this if people would like me to share this afterwards. It's belief blocker bingo. Bit of tongue twister for you there. And it's basically talking about the little things that pop up in our head that stop us from doing certain things. So an example of a belief blocker is, I'm too busy. Okay, or I don't have enough time. Either one, they're quite interchangeable. Another one could be anything about shoulds and shouldn't. So I shouldn't have time for me. So like you were saying, that felt like a blocker, asking for help from your mother-in-law, because you were like, well, I shouldn't be asking just for time for me. It could be, I'm not worthy of that, or I don't deserve that. Okay, there's loads and loads of different ones. So again, just have a little think. What little things, okay, it's like a little pop-up in your brain that's actually acting as a block from you taking action. So again, let's get these out in the open. Write them down, write them on your phone. You could say them out loud if you want to. I'm all about sort of bringing things into the light. It's a really important part of coaching. So just write down like what that belief blocker might be. I really try and kind of impress with this point is all of these belief blockers, and I've got like a little printout. These are the things that your brain will try and tell you are facts. Your brain will say, this is the truth. This is evident. This is facts. And facts are things that we cannot deny, right? They are either yes or no. Actually, these are not the truth. So belief blockers are not real life evidence, but they are things that are trying to trick you into thinking that. So it's a really tricky, kind of complicated process to try and go through. But I want that to be an empowering process, because if they're not the truth, then actually they can be changed. They can be swapped with an alternative. So I'm too busy could be swapped for, I will make time for myself today. Or I'm not deserving of this is, you know, rest is not selfish. Rest is essential for me. So think about what blocker can you swap in with something that can be a more positive, factual bit of evidence that you start feeding your brain and telling yourself. Once you've got that, you then go on to the C part, which is communicate. Now, this is hard. And I'm not saying this is like, oh, fine, once you've done the A, B, this is the easy bit. I'm not going to lie, this is probably almost the hardest step, and often the bit that the mums that I work with kind of drop off with, because it feels really hard and it's difficult. But having a conversation about what your needs are is the key to unlocking things to start changing. So it might be having a conversation with your partner, for example, about how the mornings run right now. And it also is going to be a little bit about sacrificing a bit of that perfect mum badge. So for me, I had to go to my husband and be like, I'm really overwhelmed in the mornings. And so I need to change something. Can we have a chat about that? You know, can we try and find a solution together? You have to get a little bit vulnerable about that. It could be going to your boss and saying, look, having that like rush from work to the nursery run is totally like messing with my nervous system. It's making me shout, all of that stuff. Can I leave 20 minutes earlier? These are hard conversations, but once you start taking those little steps, that's when the action can happen.
It's like setting your boundaries, isn't it, in that way? If it is a time thing, it's I need to leave 20 minutes earlier. And actually, I had that same thought this morning with my husband. I was like, I am similarly struggling with the mornings. We don't have enough time. We need to start leaving earlier. It's a conversation I know I need to have, but
Yeah.
I'm putting it off until I feel that we are in the right space to be able to do that, when it's not heated and it's all of those things. But I do think it is hard to do that because you also don't know how the other person is going to respond. And I think sometimes that can stop you having those conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I love what you said there, Amy, actually, about like, I want to wait until it's not the heat of the moment, because that is a huge tip, I would say. The communicate piece means careful planning. Okay. So, like, treat this with respect, right? This needs to be at the right time, in the right place, when you've both got the patience and the focus. Maybe you could make it fun. Maybe have a nice drink when you're doing it. Maybe go for a walk. Like, let's pimp this up. Let's make this an enjoyable part of the process, not the bit that everyone goes, oh God, I've got to have that conversation. It's going to be awful. And with a little bit of like pre-planning and space, you can make it work. And often people come out of those conversations feeling so buoyant, so energized, because they've really planned and executed it in the way that works for them.
Wow, that's fabulous. That's really helpful. And I think, like you say, just having that sort of three-step process, and I would love you to share that belief blocker bingo,
Yeah.
because just being able to put it down on paper and to be able to visually see these things that you are telling yourself inside, I think can sometimes make them more real and make them, you can almost unpick them a little bit more, can't you, by sort of seeing them and hearing them. Almost, if you think you would tell your friend about these things that you believe about yourself, you wouldn't expect your friend to say that about themselves. So you've almost got to flip it back. And that reframe of actually what can that mean instead is really
Mhm.
key. That's really helpful. That translates not just to building your own village and communicating and asking for what you need there, but for, lots of different things that we struggle with in motherhood. Is there anything else? We've got a few more minutes. Are there any other sort of tips and things that we can do to sort of make this start? So we asked our audience how many of them felt like they had a village, and actually only 19% of them said they felt lucky that they had a village. 33% of them said that they didn't have one at all, and then there's 48% of our audience who were really trying hard to get there, but obviously not feeling like they are being successful. Is there anything you can sort of say to that heavy majority of those really looking for a village, what they can do to find one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, I would say, like, I see you and I hear you. And society is not set up for us right now to feel like we have that village. And I'm never going to stop banging that drum, because we are fighting against stuff which is not working with us. And so whenever I kind of talk about this, not that I'm a specialist in maternity pay at work or any of that stuff, but I'm so passionate about it, and it's part of my story and why I'm here. But the reason I've kind of created the coaching offers I have is that, yes, there is the societal structures going on which are not working with us. And I will bang that drum. I will campaign. I will support all the other amazing organisations that are doing that. 5 Hour Club being one incredible one, making waves in that world. But let's also focus on what we can control, because there's a lot that we can't control. And sometimes if we pour our energy into raging about that, we don't have anything left for ourselves. So I like to actually go really small on all of this. Like, that's all happening in the world, yes, and let's do what we can. But actually, what can you do today? So this is what I always bring it back to with my clients, and I thought would be helpful for our audience today. So I like to start with the smallest possible steps that you can take with any of this stuff. I'm all about keeping expectations low. And I think, again, a lot of the women that I work with, the motherhood generation that kind of we've grown up in, we've been fed these messages of like, keep going, you need to do more, you need to be smashing it, you need to be overachieving. Actually, let's bring it back and feel like what can be achievable for us. So a few little tips that I thought people might want to try out today. Each of them take 5 minutes. Okay. So we can all find 5 minutes in our afternoon. And I know those belief blockers will be like pinging in our brains saying, I'm too busy, I haven't got time, I've got a to-do list, blah, blah, blah. But we can all find 5 minutes to do this. So my number one would be the quiet moments for ourselves. So this is touching on a whole other massive chunky topic of self-care, which I'm not going to go into, but I'm sure we could, really, really delve
Whole
into.
other life. Yeah.
A whole other life. Exactly, exactly. And when I think about that, I actually think about the way that we care for the other people in our lives, so the kids that we're looking after, maybe family members, maybe partners, or other people in our lives. Imagine the amount of care that you put into that person in any one day. So on a practical level, what does that look like? So, you know, we've all sent our kids off to school with water bottles and snacks and packed lunches, etc. this morning. We've probably all had a little bit of a worry about, oh, they've got this thing coming up at school, or they seemed a bit, you know, nervous at drop off or whatever it is. So there's an emotional level going on. And then there's the kind of like mental load of what's going to happen next and what we need to do for them and all of that. So imagine that whole kind of nucleus of care that we are giving out. Can we just take 5% of that back for us? Just 5% on five
I
minutes?
mean, it's not much to ask, is it?
It's not much to ask. It's not much to ask. So yeah, set yourself a timer and do something that is solely caring for you for 5 minutes. That does not have to be meditating. It doesn't have to be journaling. It doesn't have to look any certain way. If that is sitting down with a cup of tea rather than rushing around and letting your tea go cold, that's enough. So that was my first little one. My second little one is 5 minutes to cut corners and to let go of that sort of perfectionism, that supermum thing. So again, in your day today, in your afternoon, what could you do which would bring back, and I love the 5% as well, what could you bring down by 5% the perfectionist standards that you probably set yourself today? That could be around what you're going to be cooking for dinner tonight. It could be around how you're going to be, like, you know, showing up for your kids after school, you know, being that perfect mum, being super calm. Maybe you've got loads of activities planned for them. Maybe you
On
want
the
to bring them back.
TV and give yourself 5 minutes.
Exactly, exactly. How can we bring that down by 5% in 5 minutes? My third one and my last one is 5 minutes to find a little bit of joy for you. And again, that's going to look completely different to all of us, just like all of our villages look completely different, unconventional, and unique. But what will bring you 5 minutes of joy just for you? Now, that might involve your kids. And actually, that might involve, let's have 5 minutes of being silly together rather than 5 minutes of rushing on to the next activity or whatever it is. 5 minutes of sitting on the sofa and watching TV together, like whatever that joy is for you. Or it might be, actually, I'm going to go and put my favourite song on and have a dance around in the kitchen by myself. That kind of connection to your own joy is something that we often can totally lose in motherhood. And lots of women that I work with get to where they're like, I don't know what brings me joy anymore. Like, it used to be this, it kind of is this now, but I don't really know. So even spend 5 minutes thinking about that. So those are my three things. So quiet moments for yourself, cutting corners, and finding a little bit of joy.
Oh, and I don't think that is much to ask, really. I mean, you put that together, it's 15 minutes of your day. Even if you do one a day, it's just little slivers, and it's that reflection time. And I think you're right. I think, you know, the world can be doing what it's doing, but and that can sometimes be overwhelming, and it can feel like a lot, and it feels like we can't break those systems. But what can we do for ourselves, for our family, those small, tiny steps of what we can take control in and we can change in a positive way to move towards the right direction is the key here. And I thank you for reminding us of that today, Helly, because I think it can be really hard and all consuming. But just taking it to ourselves, taking it to our family, our nucleus, and doing those little pieces really will make a difference. So I am going to go after this call. I'm going to go and have my 5 minutes. I don't know what I'm going to do first, whether I'm going to go and put the music on and
Yeah.
have a dance. I will say the other day I actually spoke to my friend about this and I said, I don't know how to have fun anymore. I don't know how, you know, what makes me laugh and, you know, properly belly laugh. And we were there and the boys were rolling down the hill. And we just did it. We just rolled down the hill with them. It was the best 5 minutes that
I
I've
love
had
that.
such a long time. And honestly, it
Mm.
brought me so much joy. And my kids are talking about it still today. And it just, you know, it lit us both up on a
Mm.
pretty rainy Wednesday afternoon. So just finding those moments together with people around you or on your own is so key. So thank you, Helly, for reminding us of those. If for anybody who doesn't know you or know where to find you, can you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, best place is Instagram. So I am at Helly _ the village coach. And if anyone wants to chat through anything that we've talked about today, I offer a free, no obligation discovery call. So you can book a call in my link in my bio. And I'd love to chat to anyone about anything that we've talked about today.
Oh, I could talk to you forever, Helly. I might have to go back to schools, bless you. I will share all your details in our YouTube link as well. And if you could send over that fabulous belief blocker bingo as well, we can share that for you all as well. So thank you so much for everybody listening. Hopefully that just gave you a little bit of joy, if nothing else, or even just half an hour of sitting and doing something for yourself today. So thank you for joining us today, Helly. It has been lovely to chat to you.
Thanks for having me, Amy. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.